Murray, when you spoke about, and we talked obviously about Senna, and I think one of the things that we as motor racing fans, one of the additional tragedies apart from his death was that it also, we never got to see, I guess, the battles between Senna and Schumacher, and Senna obviously towards the end of his career and Schumacher on the ascendancy. That would have been a great period to see those two guys going at it together on a race circuit, wouldn't it?
Well, yes, it would, Russell, but it didn't happen in the same way that we never saw Sterling Moss against Jim Clark, really, and we never saw Jim Clark against Jackie Stewart the way we might have done. There have been all sorts of overlap periods where one driver at the top of his career has been on the point of retiring just as some other newcomer who was clearly going to be a top man was beginning his career. It would have been nice to see Senna and Schumacher racing against each other more than they did, but it clearly wasn't destined to happen.
Yeah, and I guess Schumacher, and again, clearly his record speaks for itself, but a very different character to Senna, isn't he?
Yes, he is. I don't. People in Britain tend either to like Schumacher or loathe him. I always liked him. He was always very kind and helpful and friendly and cheerful as far as I was concerned. Truly great driver, and that goes without saying. People who say, yes, but Ferrari always gave him precedence in the team, should realise that he would have beaten his teammate anyway, almost invariably. But, I mean, Senna was, I was going to say more intelligent than Schumacher. On reflection, I don't think that's a very fair thing to say. Senna was more of a personality than Schumacher was. I mean, Michael is a very decent, ordinary bloke who happens to be an absolutely brilliant racing driver. Not got the greatest sense of humour in the world. I don't mean he's not a cheerful bloke, because there's a difference between being cheerful and having a highly developed sense of humour. Yeah. But come to that, Ayrton Senna wasn't exactly a barrel of laughs, now that I come to think about it, so maybe they got more in common than I give them credit for.
I think the thing with Schumacher, though, was he had this, from the outside and certainly watching it from afar, but he was able to bring the sort of key ingredients around him at Ferrari to make all that happen. It was, again, probably not in a way that we hadn't seen, I guess, since Lauder's days, where he was able to get everybody rallied around him for that reason and to build the team around him. Would that be a fair assessment?
Oh, very, very fair. I mean, Senna and Schumacher had a lot of characteristics in common, and one of them was that they made their team theirs, and the other team member really hadn't got a hope of getting the support that they did. By the same token, they both worked unremittingly at every aspect of their craft. Being a good Formula One driver was their life and mattered to them above all else.
Murray, I wanted to ask you, and again, for guests who are just joining us, we're talking to motor racing legend, commentator from the BBC in the UK, Murray Walker. Murray, I guess from looking on some of these aspects from the commentary box, I read something in your autobiography where you actually I can't remember the exact circuit, but you were commentating from a grandstand, an open grandstand, and two other commentators on either side of you ended up having a fight. Was that?
Yeah, it was Monaco.
Was that at Monaco?
Yeah.
And you had to sort of keep going while the punch-up was happening.
Yes, that was in the early days, Russell, and we were all in an open grandstand. It was an open grandstand that the public were in as well, as a matter of fact, and the television commentators were sitting at the back of it, and we just had a monitor in front of us, and we were very close to each other, shoulder to shoulder. And I had the Swedish commentator on my left and the French commentator on my right, and for some reason the French commentator had gone out and was rejoining the race, and he tripped over the headset wire of the Swedish commentator and pulled the Swedish commentator's head into the monitor, which didn't please him too much. So he got up and gave the French bloke a push as he walked past and said the Swedish equivalent of, "Hey, watch it."
Yeah.
At which the French bloke turned around and pushed him back. And before I knew where I was, I got a fierce fisticuffs battle going on behind me. So I had to just ignore that and press on with what I was there for.
One of the other things I read in the book too was that you started to develop a little bit of a reputation for having, I think, what the drivers called a Murray Walker kiss of death.
Yeah.
What was that about?
Well, when you're commentating, I mean, you can forecast that something is going to happen, and it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It's very clear at this stage of the race that Nigel Mansell is not going to make a pit stop, and as I said it, he puts his hand up and drives into the pits. So, but what are you to do? You can't say nothing.
That's right.
But I certainly did quite a lot of that, and Kiki Rosberg came up to me in Australia once and said, "Can I have a word with you, Murray?" And I said yes, which is very unusual because racing drivers don't tend to come up to commentators and ask if they can talk to them. You have to go and get them out of the pits out of the motorhome with an oxyacetylene cutter. But I said, "What can I do for you?" And he said, "Well, it's my last race." And I said, "Yes, I know that, Keke. I've been talking about you all season." And he said, "Well, as you know, this being my last race, I'm very anxious to do well in it." And I said, "Yes, of course you are." And he said, "Well, Murray, look, do me a favour. If I am doing well, for heaven's sake, don't say anything about it." But he was actually a bit more outspoken than that, but since you've got a family show, I better not say exactly what he said. So I was commentating on him, and he was leading the race, and I said so, and he got a puncture and retired.
Well, what's a commentator to do? As you say, you've just got to call it as you see it, don't you?
Yeah.
Murray, your commentary career came to an end and with retirement in 2001 with the race at Indianapolis. That must have been I can only imagine what that would feel like, but it must have been a very interesting time for you to see that all those years of commentary and travelling around the world and, as you say, seeing great places and going to great motorsport events. That must have been a very difficult time, I take it?
Well, no, it wasn't actually, Russell. I mean, it's just another event, another race, and you don't actually consciously think, when I've done this one, I'm not going to be doing any more, because actually I have done quite a lot since, but that's another story. They gave me a wonderful send-off party, and I wasn't sent. I had decided that the time had come for me to stop, for all sorts of reasons. I'm literally an old man, and the travelling is extremely tiring over a whole season. And I'd been doing it for 53 years, and I thought, I really think that's about it. That's about enough. And I haven't regretted it. I would love still to be doing it, but I know that it would flatten me if I tried to. So I've got no complaints.
And Murray, from your book, I noticed that for a long time, and that certainly from my memory, I know you're from Formula One commentary, but for a long time that was still a hobby for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was a hobby. I mean, I was in the advertising business from 1947 when I came out of the army until 1982 when I retired, and that was my bread and butter and some of the jam as well. And the commentating, which I did a great deal of. I think my record was 36 weekends in 1 year when I was doing motocross commentary. That was essentially a hobby, and it wasn't until I retired from business for age reasons. I'd reached the age of 60, and it was time to stop.
Yeah.
It wasn't until 1982 when I retired that commentary became a full-time occupation. You know what happens. Work expands according to time available, and I suddenly had a lot more time available for commentating on account of the fact that I haven't got a day job anymore. And that rapidly got absorbed by the broadcasting, what had been a hobby.
And Murray, I guess, as you say, things have there's always that thing when suddenly you have got that open window of opportunity for time-wise, it seems to get filled with other things. And that did bring you back to Australia on a number of occasions, didn't it? Not just for the Grand Prix, but obviously for the Bathurst race, where you got to do a couple of laps around with Brocky and in his Austin A30.
Yeah, I've done Bathurst twice when they had the 2 litres instead of the V8s. And as you know, V8s are what matter in Australia, and certainly what mattered at Bathurst. And the first year I was walking around the course, and I found some grizzled old retainer who had been brought up on the V8s.
Yeah.
And I said, what do you think of the 2 litres then? He said, there are a lot of Chardonnay drinking pufters, Murray. So I said, oh, why don't you say what you really mean?
Murray, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the 4BC Motoring Show. As I said, from my perspective, it's been a great honour. You're someone who I've admired work-wise for a long time, and I've been certainly scribbling down notes and all the tips that you've been sort of giving about how to become a good commentator and a good broadcaster. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. By all means, enjoy the rest of your time. Obviously, you're going to be in Australia for a little while. Enjoy that, and certainly enjoy the trip back home. And as I said, Murray, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the 4BC Motoring Show.
Thank you, Russell. It's been a pleasure for me too. I love Australia. I think you've got a great country. I really enjoy being there, and it's going to be great to be with you all again. And thanks for letting me on your show.
Oh, no worries at all, Murray. We look forward to having you back in Australia soon.
Cheerio then.
Thanks, Murray. All the best.